The Long Road to True Happiness by WierdRandomTina. Chapter 23. Starry Skies. Thursday afternoon, Branch returned to the bunker to find a small teal box full of assorted mini tarts and a pink note on his door saying, "Meet me at the little oak clearing at 8:30. Branch smiled, his heart fluttering like a trapped bird at the thought of getting to see Princess Poppy again. Her smile, her eyes, her hair, her freckles, her laugh, her kindness, her joy, everything. After maintaining a set schedule of seeing her, it now felt strange to spend time with her at random. But it was also strangely nice this way. Sometimes she'd say a quick hello and have a brief chat with him. Could be multiple times in a single day, depending on where, when and why they crossed paths. Other times, Branch wouldn't see her at all for several consecutive days. But then, he would have the opportunity to hang out with her for a large portion of a day. It was the only form of surprise he actually looked forward to. 8:20 rolled around, and Branch was on his way to the clearing, wondering what Poppy had planned. Okay, the one other form of surprise he liked. He could already hear her voice flowing through the bushes, singing a soft melody. He found her reclined comfortably against a large tree, seated in between two large roots, staring up at the sky, with her hands folded neatly over her stomach. Poppy always looked beautiful. She could walk out of a food fight still looking like an angel. But right now, there was something about her tranquility that took Branch's breath away. As he walked over, after taking a second to learn how to breathe again, she languidly turned her head. "Do you know what today is?" Branch paused at her random greeting, 1 foot half off the ground. Should I?" Poppy giggled at his slightly panicked tone. "It's the night of the cyan stars." Since his face was still blank, she explained. "It only happens once a year. The stars shine extra bright and appear light blue. It gives the whole forest a blue overlay. It's really quite beautiful." She patted the ground beside her, and Branch finally joined her, reclining back in the same posture. He had to admit, the tree was much cozier than it looked, although a cactus could be cozy as long as the pink princess was sitting right next to him. As they waited for the phenomenon to begin, Poppy revealed a bowl of varying snacks, berries, candies, nuts and raisins, and set it in the small space between them to share. After half an hour of light banter, the sky began to darken, and sure enough, the brightening stars gradually appeared blue, and the entire forest glowed around them. Poppy let out a blissful sigh. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "Yeah." Branch almost added that she was much more beautiful, but shut his mouth before it could slip out. He was too afraid it would end up sounding corny and out of place, and the last thing he needed was to stab a thorn into their perfect atmosphere. He stole a glance at her instead, and found she was still looking up at the sky. Under this new light, her features appeared slightly purple. Her skin, hair and eyes were softly tinged mauve, orchid and bright violet. Branch couldn't help but stare. Princess Poppy really was so beautiful. He forced his dreamy gaze back up to the sky, before she could catch a glimpse of him gawking at her. Eventually, Poppy glanced over at Branch. He looked so at ease, staring up at the stars, and his colours looked amazing. His hair was a striking night sky navy blue, his skin a soft aquamarine, and his nose was almost purple. But most notably were his eyes, shining the softest yet brightest blue she had ever seen. She could stare at him all night, if it weren't for her concern of weirding him out. The princess was very pleased to have the opportunity to share this rare event with Branch, especially since he had never seen it before. In years past, she normally spent it with Creek, but now, thinking of that troll only stirred up unpleasant feelings. far from the spark she used to feel when she thought about him. Maybe it's bad to admit it, but I hardly miss spending time with him. Those moments between us happened, and they were great at the time. And now they're in the past. I can still appreciate the memory without us being friends. Poppy was still hoping her and Creek could at least learn to be civil with each other. She didn't want to be close to someone she couldn't trust, especially when they cared more about themselves than anything or anyone else. But despite that, Creek still had positive traits, and she hoped that someday they could learn to be casual friends. But Poppy did not want to dwell on that right now. She quickly redirected her mind back to the present, not wanting to spoil this perfect moment with Branch. I'd much rather share this special night with Branch anyway. Just after 9:30, a slight breeze picked up. Poppy shivered a bit and shifted her body a few times. She opened her mouth to say something to Branch, but nothing came out. She paused and then tried again. Still nothing. She knew what she wanted to ask. It was right there on the tip of her tongue. It was such a basic, insignificant, casual request. It was something she's openly asked pretty much all of her friends, including Creek. So why did it feel like her throat was being squeezed? Branch was staring forward, toward the now blue trees, just embracing this sweet, simple moment. He loved playing games with Poppy, laughing with her, going for walks with her, but these moments were just as wonderful. Sometimes even more wonderful. Every second with the amazing pink and magenta troll was special, regardless of how they were spending it. And right then, he didn't think this moment could possibly get any better. That is, until she shyly asked him a question. Hey, Branch, would you mind if... Can I move closer to you? At his questioning glance, she rambled. It's just, I'm sort of chilly all of a sudden, and I didn't think to bring a blanket, and I'm not very comfortable anymore, so... Branch blinked a couple of times. Of course he didn't mind. Yeah, if you want, sure. He held his breath as Poppy shuffled closer to him, scooching down a bit so she could rest her head between his shoulder and cheek. Branch slowly let out a puff of air, adjusting to the increased closeness. It only took a couple of steady breaths to calm his nerves again. At least he no longer panicked when she was near him. Poppy began to sing, very gently, Stars shining bright above you. After the third verse, Branch's eyelids were already getting heavy. Halfway through the song, Poppy interrupted herself with a couple of yawns, and her sweet words drowsily trailed off. Branch jolted awake. He was still outside in the clearing. The blue light had faded. The breeze was gone, and the moon was high in the starry sky. But what truly stole his attention at that moment was the sleeping princess next to him. She was now lying on her side, her entire body snuggled right up against his, with an arm draped over his waist, and a leg partially over the top of his. If it weren't for him lying down, he would have surely passed out. Actually, Branch wished he would have passed out, because now he had to figure out how in the flipping hair he was supposed to react to this. Such a scenario was something he'd only ever dealt with in dreams. Maybe this was nothing more than a vivid dream. Was he freaking out too much, or just the right amount? It was difficult to think with her body heat setting him on fire. Should he wake her? That seemed like it would only cause unnecessary awkwardness. For once, Branch didn't want to overanalyze and fret about what could go wrong. For once, he just wanted to enjoy this one small, intimate moment with Poppy, even if it meant nothing in the long run. So he took advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime chance to admire the princess's beauty up close. Her freckles literally sparkled, even in the dark, like two patches of stars emphasized even more by the permanent blush on her gently rounded sunset pink cheeks. The tips of her ears weren't as smoothly curved as most trolls. Instead, they had a subtle upward points that were uniquely cute and matched her perky personality. Though her smile was tiny now, he could easily imagine the sweet dimples that would form alongside every giddy laugh. It was impossible to forget the gorgeous, vibrant fuchsia eyes, now hidden underneath magenta eyelids and thick, jet-black eyelashes. The pretty colour of her eyelids matched the colour of her cute nose. Her hair was very similar, but not identical, being a few tones darker. Said hair looked as soft as silk, and flowed down the sides of her face, unevenly, yet so perfectly, somehow able to be both fluffy and graceful. And then there was that one little stray strand that always settled above her left eye. Poppy was all that and more, and here she was, the girl of his dreams, the love of his life, curled up cosily beside him. Hesitantly, Branch nuzzled his cheek along the top of her hair. He was wrong. That dark magenta hair was infinitely softer than silk. Her lovely strawberry scent surrounded him now, along with that light flower scent he had caught before but couldn't quite place it. He now determined it was lilac, probably her shampoo. The combination of heavenly fragrances and electrifying contact and mesmerizing sight was making him woozy. Poppy didn't move away from his touch. If anything, she shifted in closer. Lightly, Branch let his hand settle onto her forearm. Her fuzzy skin was so incredibly soft and warm as he stroked it with his thumb. It was the last thing he was conscious of as he slipped into a comfortable sleep. Poppy awoke to a cheerful bird song, louder and clearer than usual. She blinked several times, adjusting to the excessive sunlight, wondering why it was so noisy and bright in her pod, until she realized where she was, in the clearing, where she must have dozed off, and remembered who she was with. Branch. He was sound asleep beside her, his hand over hers, which was resting on his chest. Not wanting to wake him up just yet, Poppy very carefully slid her hand out, then propped herself up on her other elbow to observe him from a better angle. Since Branch would never let her be this close if he was awake, she decided to make the most of it. For a couple of minutes she contemplated his strong features. Shorter than average, straight and thick hair, the exact colour of a crow's feather. A very broad ash-grey nose, which she now noted was actually more of a smoky pale periwinkle. Uniform greyish-teal skin, elegant outward slanted ears, a tiny half smile, that exact lovely scent of fresh-cut troll mystery, all of which were distinctive to only him, giving him a unique kind of handsomeness. Poppy's hand seemed to have a mind of its own, as her fingers tenderly stroked Branch's cheek, the same cheek she had kissed almost 2 weeks ago. She could still feel the pleasant sensation on her lips, and suddenly felt a strange urge to do it again. His face was so close. "Snap out of it, Poppy!" She shook her head so roughly her bangs flapped across her face. "It's long past dawn. Time to get going." Reaching across to place her hand on his far shoulder, she gently shook him awake. Eventually Branch's eyes lazily fluttered open, and for a solid 3 or 4 seconds he just stared lovingly up at her. He had been dreaming about the beautiful pink troll, and thought he still was, until he registered he was now awake, and the beautiful pink troll was actually there, right there, her upper body hovering over him, and her pretty freckled face directly in front of his. His eyes widened at the unanticipated realism, but before he could totally freak out, she leaned back and stammered, "Sorry, I didn't want to disturb you. You were sound asleep, but I really need to get going, and I really didn't want to just leave you here all by yourself, especially not without saying goodbye, or good morning, or whatever you want to call it. Both, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, fine. Cool.
He stuttered before letting out a giant yawn. Meanwhile, Poppy giggled and got to her feet, then offered him her hands to help him up. Thanks for joining me, she continued. I'm really glad I got to enjoy the cyan stars with you.
Branch's reply was just another jumbled bunch of senseless words. Why is it so difficult to speak right now? And why must she find it so amusing? And why must I find her amusement so adorable?
Back in the bunker, while he drank his usual coffee, though this morning he barely felt like he needed it, Branch updated his journal. He had actually fallen asleep beside Poppy. He had spent the whole night with her curled up against him. He had woken up to the princess's beautiful face shining down at him. He didn't hesitate to admit how heavenly all of that had been, and couldn't stop thinking about her silky hair, her soft skin, her pretty features, her sweet fragrance, all so intoxicatingly close. Simultaneously, he was able to accept, with only a mild heartache, that this was a one-time thing that meant absolutely nothing in the long run. But it was still a pleasant memory that he would treasure forever. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh my god, that was gorgeous. So gorgeous. They basically just went on a date and just cuddled. Oh, my heart. These two are going to flip and kill me, I swear. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.